everyone, Tom from One Chance Tactical. Today we're going to take a few minutes and we're actually going to talk about this trigger that I've been using. I have exactly, not one under, but I have exactly 913 rounds through this trigger so far, and I've actually absolutely been loving it. This is going to be called your Geronimo trigger, and it's made by the great folks up at Airborne Arms LLC. So stay tuned. We're going to take a look at this.
Both locked open to the rear. We're on safe. Just hold this for me. Thanks, man. Like, not asking a terrible amount of you.
First thing I wanted to talk to you guys about, and it's not something I actually normally care too much about, admittedly, but packaging. There's definitely something to be said when a company takes such pride in something they make that they send it to you in packaging that just, it's nice packaging, it looks nice, everything is clean and laid out. And my initial impressions right off the bat, if you guys could take a look at here, obviously all the components are in the gun that Frank is holding, but the components are just laid out one by one, and this trigger right off the bat, it's coming in a super nice package. Everything you need to install this trigger is in here. It's coming with the 2 Allen screws. It's coming with 2 different hammer springs. All the disconnectors and sears, they've all been hand stoned, so do not swap disconnectors or sears or you name it amongst other triggers. Everything that's coming as per this trigger is for this individual trigger. So, I mean, kudos right off the bat for the packaging. That's pretty nice. Next thing you'll notice when you guys open up your trigger is you're going to get this 4-page pamphlet. First page is a little bit about the trigger and some of the stuff that went into it. The additional 3 pages is a very, very detailed and explicit step-by-step directions on how to actually put your trigger in. I didn't read the directions. I am an armorer, so I just threw this thing in, but I did go back to actually read what they wrote. And this is Barney proof. This is so easy a Marine could put it in. A couple key components with the trigger itself. One, it's coming with your lightweight race hammer, and they're also getting you 2 different springs courtesy of JP. There is a red spring and a bronze spring. I put both of them in just to try one of them, just to try each one out. The red spring is your heavier of the 2 springs, and Airborne Arms recommends you put in the heavier spring if you're going to be using like a lot of the NATO ammo. So today I got a little close to the steel, so I swapped over to frangible. But when I was at the 50-yard line, which is my minimum safe for rifle at steel, as you guys can see, I've been using M.A.T. Out of this trigger. And I have not been using the red hammer. I've been using, or excuse me, the red trigger spring. I've been using the bronze trigger spring, to which I personally find has a way, way nicer feel. The red one is, it's more of the reliability hammer, so to speak. The brown one's bringing you right to around the 3.5 pound mark. One cool thing that I really, really like about this trigger, and this is kind of like what was my selling point on this trigger, why I was kind of looking forward to getting my hands on it. The trigger itself, when you put it on, it takes a little bit of finger muscle, and I just put a little dab of CLP and just kind of worked it on. But if you guys can see right back in there, there's a very small set screw. So when you put the trigger on, it basically slides into a dovetail. So what that means, this trigger shoe itself is replaceable, and down the road, Airborne Arms has in the works, and they're going to be released not too long from now, 3 different trigger shoes. So you've seen companies like BCM and Magpul come out with like their K2, or BCM like this grip here, their gunfighter grip, in order to change the angle, which basically changes the interface to the hand to the trigger relationship, the trigger to the hand and the forearm, and how quickly and, or more, how precisely and accurately and consistently we can actually get on the trigger. They at Airborne Arms, they took that a step further. So if this flat face doesn't necessarily interface with your pistol grip and basically the geometry of your hand so you can keep it nice and straight, you can buy different shoes for it, or they may have it where you can pick your own shoe right on their website. So that's really cool. And to swap the shoe out, again, it's just that very small set screw right there, and then the shoe slides right off. Now, if you're asking yourself, well, if the shoe slides in on a dovetail, how safe is that? Like, is it going to come off under recoil? I can 100% quantifiably tell you, hell no. The precision machining that went into that dovetail, I wouldn't say it's like tapping your rear sight like on a handgun, but it definitely takes a little bit of finger muscle and some ass to get that trigger shoe on. It is not going anywhere at all. And then that set screw with some Loctite, of course, is definitely the I guess the deal sealer right there. That trigger shoe is not going anywhere. And knowing that you can swap out that trigger shoe to have that different interface depending on your hand size and the geometry that you kind of wish to achieve on your rifle, that's awesome. Now, how does this relate to other popular triggers on the market? I guess that's kind of subjective as to what you're looking for in a trigger. Still to this day, Geisley or Geisel, depending on who you talk to, I don't know. I've been a big Geisley fan, and I've been using either their 2 stages or their super dynamic 3 guns for just years and years and years, and I absolutely love them. This trigger right now, it just replaced my super dynamic 3 gun trigger. I'm not selling that trigger, I still love it, but the way this trigger performs is it's definitely making things to feel a lot nicer. And a big part of that reason for me personally is when I shoot, and I'm gonna get a little closer in on the camera here, they what they did was they machined out these little notches here on the trigger, which makes it ambidextrous. Let me move over here so you guys can see better. You got one on the left and you got one on the right. When I actually want to, if I want to shoot fast, and we are working with an empty gun here, when I want to shoot fast, what you'll see is I'll put my my finger right around the, I don't actually put it on the pad. I actually kind of run it off to the side. So what that means for me is when I actually want to get on this gun and I want to shoot fast and I want to see those splits drop in like the 12-11 frame, I'll run my finger right about right here, which is perfect for me. When I want to shoot precision, or if I'm trying to zero, or I'm working at something past 200 yards, I'll put more finger on the trigger and run my thumb on the outside of the gun. So seeing that the trigger here is flat faced, it's kind of giving me the best of both worlds. If I want to run precision and press the trigger perfectly to the rear, well, I can do so because it has a nice flat face. If I want to get on this gun and run it a little quicker, well, because they cut those little notches on both sides to make it ambidextrous, I simply just slide my finger over here a little bit, which gives me a really good trigger press, which makes it pretty fast. And that's something else I'm really liking about the trigger, and that's part of the reason why the trigger is going to stay in my gun. Price point on this trigger, couple of things that were in the literature. Best trigger for under 200 bucks. Yeah. This guy is coming in retails right for $189. So for $189, you're getting race hammers, 2 different springs. You're getting the Allen screws that actually hold in your oversized roll pins, which I thought was pretty cool. If you guys can see that right there, I didn't show it to you. It's coming with 2 Allen screws with the Allen keys to hold in your roll pins. You're also getting the ability to swap out trigger shoes. Again, the hammer springs, whether you wanted that reliability hammer or you wanted a lighter hammer, which is the one that I kind of prefer, all for 200 bucks. And to know that down the road, when they release their additional 2, 3, or 4 shoes, I think it's 3 or 4, that you guys can actually rip off the shoe itself and put on a different shoe and make that interface relationship even more positive for you and when you go out and shoot. So all in all, we have a pretty fast trigger. I've been getting splits out of this guy right around the 12-second or 0.12 mark, excuse me. I've gotten a couple of 11s in there a few times, but my splits are typically like 12, 13s with a mil-spec trigger. I'm working at right around like the 14, 15 with this guy right here. I've gotten a few 11s on my shot timer a couple times, but that definitely wasn't repeatable for me. The 12s, 12, 13 is right where I'm at with this trigger, and about as fast as the trigger will let me move it. So my split times are pretty good. Getting 5 rounds out in sub-second, that's a pretty good benchmark for whether or not our trigger is doing a good job for us. So price point 200 bucks under, less than 200 bucks for 189. Ability to swap out trigger shoes. It's coming with some damn good springs from a very reputable company, JP Enterprises. All the components on this trigger, the disconnector, the hammer, you name it, all those components are hand filed, hand fitted. It's coming in a very nice package, and to make matters even better, you call Airborne Arms on the phone and you had questions, you're going to get a human on the phone. Their customer service up there is probably second to none. I have never called the company and so much as I talked to Ryan in the past like month or two, and actually gotten this guy on the phone. He answers his phone. He stands by his product. If you have questions, he'll answer them. So all in all, the package that you're getting, price point versus like where we can actually be on the range for sub $200, definitely take a look at the Geronimo trigger.